Alright y'all, welcome back to the channel and to some more buckshot testing, and today we've got a really interesting test to run. I've wanted to do something like this for quite some time now, but it's not always easy to get an old setup and a new setup and an older shell and a newer shell that are all kind of just the old and newer versions of each other. So now that we've got all of this pulled together, I think this should be something really fun to test since we're going to be running old versus new in a couple different ways. So it should be rather interesting to see what the differences actually are, or if there's really not as much difference as you might expect. So for the shells we've got today, I brought out these two. We've got old and new of the Winchester Super X buckshot loads. Both of these are a 12 gauge, 2 3/4 inch, 9 pellet load of double-aught, and the new box says 1325 for velocity, and I would imagine the old shells are probably somewhere close to that ballpark as well, but this should be a rather interesting head-to-head. I don't know exactly what era this old box is from. It reminds me of stuff I've seen out of the 80s into the 90s. If somebody knows exactly what this design is or what year it's from, then by all means let us know in the comments, but I would imagine 80s, 90s, somewhere right in there. So with both of these being the same loading, we're gonna put them head to head and see just how far we may have come in ammo tech. I know the new shells have a small little wad in them, where the old shells I don't believe do. So will that make a massive difference? As for the patterns we're gonna see between them, I don't know, but we'll see what happens. But for the shotgun we're running, I brought out my Mossberg 500, but we've got two different kind of barrels and chokes to run them through as well that are also old and new. That being these two. On the gun currently is a 28-inch barrel. It's a factory Mossberg barrel that's only a couple years old. It's got screw-in chokes in it. We've got a full choke screwed into there today, and I've got this other barrel as well. This is a 30-inch barrel with a fixed full choke, so this is much older technology. This is much newer technology. We've got fixed choke versus screw-in choke as well. So not only do we have old versus new shell tech, we've got old versus new barrel tech and old versus new choke technology. So a lot of comparison today, and we're going to mix and match stuff and really see how they perform. So as for how we're going to run this test, we're going to shoot 4 different shots. We're going to shoot 2 of the new shells and 2 of the old shells, and we're going to wind up putting both of the shells through both of our barrels. So we'll start with the old 30-inch fixed full choke barrel. It's a 695 constriction, and our screw and choke is a 696, so very similar there. But we'll start by putting one of each of our new and old shells through the old 30-inch fixed full choke barrel. We'll see if the new tech does any better than the old tech in the old barrel, and then we'll flip-flop it. I'll switch to the new screw-in choke 28-inch barrel with the full choke, and we'll do the same thing. We'll take a shot with each of our 2 different shells, and we'll see, does the new choke pattern better than the old fixed choke, and do we see a better or worse pattern between the old and new shells. So this should be a really interesting comparison between everything that is old versus new. I don't know what we're going to get yet, but first, 30-inch fixed full choke barrel, we'll take a shot through the old Super X and then the new Super X, and we'll see where we're at for a starting point there. All right, quick run through for the velocities. The new box says 1325 for a claim. There's no number on the old box, but I would imagine it is about the same. So from the 30-inch fixed full barrel, the old shells gave us 1300 right on the dot, and the new shells gave us 1273. So a little lower velocity, a little less than the box claim, but still pushing close to 1300 or so. That's pretty typical for an average Super X loaded double-aught. All right, so first up, quick look at these two. We've got the old Super X on the left, the new Super X on the right. Both of these shots were at 40 yards through the old 30-inch fixed full choke barrel. We definitely see some rather interesting results here. The old Super X on the left is definitely the better, more even overall spread, and the new Super X on the right is a little more blotchy, but may have a little bit tighter of a core area of shot with a few flyers. But first, looking up close at the old Super X through the 30-inch fixed full barrel. Nice even spread of pellets there. I like that they're nice and even. There's no major flyers or anything like that to contend with. It's 17.5 inches tall by 14.25 inches wide. So we are indeed under the 20-inch mark that I like to see. And we're getting right close to being down there at the 15-inch mark, which is where we really start to have a very nice buckshot pattern. Either way, that is a very usable combination. Those shells might be 30 to 40 years old, and that barrel might be 40 to 45 years old, I believe. I think that one is from the 70s, if I'm not mistaken. But that is still a very nice, very capable combination. So old plus old equals pretty good. But now moving over to the right, this is our new Super X shells through the same old 30-inch fixed full choke barrel. Little bit less pretty of a pattern overall. We've got a little tighter clump of them down here in the bottom left, but we've got two obvious flyers up there at the top right. I did measure. The actual entire size of the pattern is 22 inches tall by 16 inches wide. However, we had 12 by 7 for these 7 pellets down here, excluding our 2 flyers. So not as pretty of a pattern. Maybe we might have a little better core area, but honestly, I still kind of prefer the old Super X between these two. I'll take a little more even of a spread that might be a little bit more broad rather than a little more splotchy of an area of shot. So interesting potential that we have between these two. We've got even spread, and then we've got tighter core with flyers. So will that trend continue or not? Let's throw the 28-inch modern barrel on that gun. It's got a screw-in full choke. That's a 696 constriction compared to the 695 we had here with the fixed full. We'll do the same thing. Old Super X first, then new Super X, just through the new 28-inch barrel with the screw-in choke. Will it make any difference, or will we see the same thing? I don't know. Let's try it and see what happens. So again, quick velocity rundown. 1325 Boss claim, at least for the new ones. The old Super X shell through the 28-inch barrel with the screw-in full choke, read as 1360, but those older shells have some sort of a paper or fiber cushion material and stuff in them. You can see it blasting out of the end of the barrel when you fire it, so it may have picked up a little bit of that junk and read a little bit high. I don't know that we were actually seeing 1360 from them, but you never know, especially since we were seeing 1300 from the 30-inch barrel. But the new Super X gave us 1279, and what was the other one from the 30-inch barrel, like 1275 or something like that? So pretty consistent there, just below 1300. Overall, nothing out of the realm of reason here for velocities. All right, so now we have our 2 shots from the new barrel. On the left, we have the old Super X. On the right, we have the new Super X. Again, both of these shots are at 40 yards. Both of them are put through the new 28-inch barrel with the screw-in full choke. And both patterns definitely did better than what we saw with the old fixed full choke barrel. So it seems like new barrel, even with old shells, does equal a little bit better performance. That could be new barrel, little different forcing cone design. It could be the choke as well. Obviously, the screw-in choke is probably a little shorter than what the length of the fixed full choke is, where it gradually constricts down. All of that could play a difference here. But between these two patterns, we see a similar story, or at least a pretty similar look to the patterns that we saw previously. One's a little more even, one might be a little tighter core, but have a couple flyers. So that trend seems to have continued, but both patterns improved. On the left, we have our old Super X in the new barrel. This is still kind of the little bit more broad spread and maybe a little less pretty than what we saw with them through the old barrel, but it's still a decently even spread as for the overall size of the pattern goes. No major flyers, maybe you're starting to string a couple down low there, but overall we're looking at 15 inches tall by 11.75 inches wide. So we're under the 15-inch mark that I like to see. So we're definitely down there in a perfectly nice, perfectly usable pattern size combination. So even though it might be a 30-year-old shell or more, you've still got plenty adequate performance even through the new choke. Now moving over to the new Super X, through the new 28-inch barrel with the screw-in choke. Definitely a tighter spread here than what we've seen previously, but the characteristics are still there. We've got a tighter core area with an obvious flyer over on the left. We're looking at 9.5 inches tall by 12 inches wide overall, so we are down there in the very nice looking pattern territory. I just wish that left flyer was in with the rest of them a little bit better. Then we'd really have something. Either way, that is still a super impressive buckshot pattern, even with a tiny little bit of a flyer. So very interesting comparison here, going to this new choke and barrel combination as well. So here's where I'll jump in voiceover and show you guys pictures of everything side by side so you can really get a good idea on how everything looks in comparison. Feel free to pause as we run through this because I will speed through it a little bit quicker than me standing out there in the actual field. But just looking at the raw patterns all side by side, not a terrible performance from any of these combos, but on average I think the newer barrel performed a little bit better with the screw-in choke. The old barrel did just fine, gave us some nice results. I really like how even the old barrel with the old Super X was, but if we're looking at the main clump of pellets in the center of the pattern, I think the new barrel is the little bit better option, especially with those new shells. Now hopping over to our deer templates, pretty much same story to see here. The only one I'm not a huge fan of is the old shells in the new screw-in choke barrel, but any of them would have done the job, although I will say the new shells in the new screw-in choke barrel is a pretty hard combo to argue with if you want a tight core, although the old shells and the old barrel also gave you a really nice even spread of pellets to work with. And moving over to coyote templates, yet again, any of them would work, but probably the new choke and the new shells is the best predator option if that is a situation you find yourself in with a combo like this. And finally, for the people that may not be hunters, here are the 18x30 torso cutouts. And overall, I really like the old shells and the old fixed full choke barrel for the really nice even coverage they have. But yet again, I wouldn't want to be the two-legged creature standing in front of any of these combinations. And here are the two wads out of our new Super X shells. The old ones do not have these wads in there. They just have little fiber pieces and paper pieces and stuff like that inside of them. But on the left, we have the shot from the old 30-inch fixed full barrel. On the right, the new 28-inch screw-in choke. Both of them look very similar. Nothing I'm worried about here. Very typical performance overall, and they did what they were designed to do anyway. But I'd say overall, this is probably the biggest change that these shells have had over the years. They're still unplated, they still have buffer, but now the new ones have this wad in there, which we've seen can make a difference, especially depending on choke. Different chokes do better or worse with different types of wads. All right, well, what do we think about these results and what did we actually learn here today? It was definitely fun to see what the difference was between not only an old barrel with an old fixed choke and a new barrel with a screw-in choke, but also the old Super X versus the brand new Super X loads. And in the grand scheme of things, not quite as much difference as what some of us probably thought. Overall, I would say doesn't really matter if you have an old gun with a longer barrel, fixed choke, and you're running new shells, or the other way around, if you got a new gun and are running old shells or something of that nature, you can still have a perfectly good, nice performing pattern regardless of what combination you run. There's obviously a little bit different attributes going on here. With the older shells, we had a little bit more open of a pattern, but also a little bit more even of a spread. With the new shells, we had that much tighter condensed core, which may very well have come from the wad that they now have in them, but we're starting to get a few more noticeable flyers than what we saw with the old shells as well. So kind of pick which option you would rather go with and run it, at least if you still have some older shells left. But not a massive difference, although it is definitely noticeably different in the characteristics of the pattern. At the end of the day, it's just going to come down to your setup, your shells, what combinations work well together, and you just got to test it to see what it actually does. Any one of these combinations would be perfectly adequate for a deer hunting combination. I would run any of them, but I would definitely prefer one or two of these patterns over the others. And it's probably going to come down to that same thing with you. So let me know all your thoughts down below. Is this about what you expected to see? Were you a little surprised one way or the other? Have you ever tested anything like like this where it's old gun versus new gun, old choke, old shell, new shell, that type of stuff? And if so, what kind of results have you seen? Are any of these combos something you would actually want to hunt with? And if so, which option is your favorite? Do you like the older barrel with the older shells that give you the nice even spread? Do you like the new barrel and the new choke with the new shells that give you that nice tight core and you don't mind having a flyer or two? Which option out of these would you actually pick? And what other testing do you want to see us do like this? Again, like I said earlier, it's not always easy to find old versus new direct comparison combinations, but I'll see what I can get for future testing. But until then, I've got that old barrel and I've got more of those old Super X shells, so let me know what you might want to see us do with them. But with that being said, I've got some more testing to get done for you guys, so I'm going to get back to it. As always, you have the channel Instagram as well as the mailbox where you can send stuff if you'd like. All that information will be in the description if you're interested in it, but I'm going to get back to it, so I'll see y'all in the next one.